Welcome to the Don't Die Rusty podcast. I'm Rick Hansen, and we will be talking about living, not dying. We're all on this adventure together, and we will be interviewing people who inspire us to live our best lives. People with various backgrounds who will walk us down the trails they took to not die rusty. Adventure in life are many things to many people. It could be a sprint or an endurance race, but with each adventure, we become a better version of us. We hope you keep chasing those dreams, being the best you, and of course, don't die rusty. Well, hello, Don't Die Rusty Nation. I'm lucky enough to be here again with world champion bullfighter Jerry Norton. Ricky will be jumping in here after he puts his daughter to bed. And talked with Jerry about a month or so ago, and with Cody Custer, world champion 92 bull rider. But I feel lucky to have you. The conversations we had at supper.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot about Jerry Norton at supper.
You did. Uh-oh.
I don't know if, your friends and people will probably listen to this, I hope. And yes, I want to talk about the hyperbaric chambers here in a while, because I think that has blown me out of, I just keep on thinking about this stuff and how it correlates and helps. And then I listened to a few other podcasts about eating, and we talked about the healthy eating that you do now too to help you out. And I want to get into that. But before we get
it's fascinating.
It is fascinating.
I was just gonna say it's very fascinating. I've learned so much in the last year and a half. It's a wonderful thing that's out there.
And it is, and we talk about at Don't Die Rusty about living the best life you can live. And I'm not kidding you. I drove home from, I drove back to my dad's that night, back to Rehites, and then I drove home that night. And I just kept on thinking about this, because Don't Die Rusty is about living your best life. And when we talked about the hyperbaric chamber, I was thinking, and this is where I want to start this. I want to start by talking about you being a bullfighter in ranch life, because I remember being in concussions. Okay.
Right.
Because that's where we were going with this. And I remember being 11 years old. And, I worked for Ted Jennings at the time, and you drove around, and, we cut and vaccinated and in pins. I think it was 20,000 head one year. It was one of those. We drove around, and it was the funnest time for an 11-year-old, because my dad's, your dad's my dad was more on the farming end of working for Ted Jennings, and I was with the cowboys having a good time, and you're working cattle, and it's exciting, But I remember getting kicked in the head by a calf, and I got knocked out, and you can hear people going, "Oh, is he all right?" This and that, and they drug me up to the panels, and I woke up, and they said, and it was, of course, they challenged you to go, because it was the biggest calf in that pen at that time.
Let's see what you're made of there, son.
Exactly. So you go do that, and and we got him down, and things got, we got the work done. But after I woke up, they paid me $1 to go back after him. And then I remember in football that, I know I've got concussions in football.
Sure.
And I know where I want to go with this, Jerry, is that we don't know how many. I know I've had more than probably 10. And you've had to get them bullfighting.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of countless. And let's preface everything with, we touched on the hyperbarics, and then we're talking about the concussions. This is all going to tie together here in a little bit. The concussions led me, and my problems with having so many concussions, it was causing me problems in life period, with my brain and things like that, and just socially interacting, and just living life period. And I ended up being recommended to go get some treatment at with the hyperbaric chamber. But back to what we're talking about there for concussions. Oh my gosh, farmers and ranchers and kids playing soccer, football, volleyball, whatever it is, there's concussions are not uncommon. It's not commonplace, but it's not uncommon either. Um, so, who knows how many times that you've been concussed, and that I don't know how many times that I've been had a concussion and been concussed. I've learned a lot, like I said, in the last year and a half, where, well, you're being knocked out, yeah, that's definitely a concussion. But then anytime that you get hit hard and you see stars, even for a split second, or your ears ring because you've taken a good hit or delivered a good hit, whether it be a football or just working on the ranch, falling, slipping and falling, whatever it might be. Uh, when your brain gets jarred, that's a concussion. Uh, when you've seen stars, like I said, even if it's for a split second, it's still a mild concussion. Those add up. The concussions add up, and unfortunately, they added up for me. I've counted, oh, 20, a few more than 20 concussions where it's obvious I was knocked out, that I was concussed. But then there's countless times that I've been hit so hard that I saw stars for a split second, but it was no big deal at the time. You don't think
Yeah.
about it. And actually, the inside of our skull, I've learned, has ridges in it in different places. And our brain is kind of like a jello, the consistency of maybe a thick jello. You can bang in the side of a bowl of jello, and yeah, you can see it. You can see the waves going across it, from when you bumped it or hit it. Our brains are taking that sort of abuse too, and they're not made to. Uh, you know, I'm not here to say anybody should not do anything. Shouldn't I'm not saying that somebody shouldn't ranch, shouldn't rodeo, shouldn't whatever it is. All power to you to do what you want to do, but be smart, be wise, look out for yourself and each other. Uh, because somebody's dazed or whatever, uh, they might not know that they're concussed or that they've got a concussion. Uh, where I had my treatments for the hyperbarics, um, they in their studies they've determined that somebody who has a concussion is unable to self-diagnose or that they have a concussion. They can't realize it, and that's a proven fact. Uh, but you were saying you've had a bunch of concussions
Well,
over the years.
I know I have. I mean, I like, and you say you're self concussed. It's funny because I remember, I remember going to Chamberlain in football, and that I got just smoked, and I was like, and we ran a play, and we stopped them. I mean, and I just remember this for I don't know why how I remember it, but I remember my buddy took the kid high, and I went low, and I got a thigh in the head, and just like
Yeah,
you're just going, you know what I mean? You're kind of you're it's blurry, and it's like, oh my gosh, and you go off, and then I'm still, and we ran a pass play, and I dropped the ball, and I
yeah.
said, well, I couldn't see it. You know, it's like, which one
Oh
do I
wow,
get? You know what I mean? And I said,
wow.
run the play again, because I will catch it this time. And I
Yeah,
did, and actually scored a touchdown on that. So you feel like you're did something good. But here's where I'm going
sure.
with this: is you and I grew up in in a time where it wasn't the concussion thing wasn't a big deal. It was tough. You had to be tough, I think, and
Yep.
maybe not. I mean, I just and maybe it was an honor thing because I used to.
Yeah.
I told you I used to calve out 1,000 heifers. I was a night calver because I was, and I mean, there was day guys too, but I'm just saying
Right.
you're the young guy. You do the night because you're the night, and you get to the end
Right.
because you're young, and you get to the end, and I'm checking, and I got to go over and play a little pickup basketball between checks, and I
Yep.
sprained my ankle, and the doctor said you should have broke it because it would have been better, but that
Yep.
night I sprained it, and I kept on calving, and I pulled like two calves that night, and just because where I'm going with this is we were taught to be tough.
Right. Yep. There's a
Eh,
toughness mentality. Grit your teeth, get the job done. Don't sit there and be a wuss and sit on the sidelines. Oh, I can't do it. And somebody else. That just didn't happen.
no,
And a lot of it was pride, and a lot of it was machoism of young boys, young men. Yeah, I can take it. Or yeah, I just got my bell rung. That's I think it was the culture of the time that when we grew up. There's still some of that now. I see that in schools, and even in rodeo. There's the pride of like, yeah, it's not so bad, or it's not, I'll just rub some dirt on it and I'll be good.
mm,
There's still that machoism out there, and it's not just guys, but it's gals too.
yeah,
The gritty ones that want to be tough and are tough, they're just gonna bear down and do what so many here in the Midwest do, is just knuckle down and just get the job done. Sure, my I might be bleeding here or there, but yeah, I've bled before.
exactly.
It's just that kind of mentality. And when you're talking about something as tender or sensitive, if you will, to injury such as the brain, gosh, it's just a whole different deal. And we don't really realize it because we don't see it. And a lot of times, like if we've had a concussion, we become, if symptoms stick around for a bit of time, we get used to them.
Hmm.
So we grow accustomed to living like that. Uh, Maybe it's you become more forgetful, or your long-term memory isn't quite what it used to be. Um, Sometimes that comes naturally with age, the aging of the body and the brain. But you know, slight headaches, or I get headaches more often in bright lights than I used to. I don't know why. Well, you kind of look back at your history and you might find out. Not always, but it's possible. It's definitely they add up, and
And
I can get to that here after a bit on how I know that they add up.
well,
I've seen it.
and it's I don't know if it's because I'm getting older. We talked about this last night too, about in a different episode that we did, but I don't know if it's because I'm getting older and I can look back and see what I've done, and you know what I mean. Like you're maybe I'm getting wiser. I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever get mine because you said it was Jello in there. I think mine's more mashed potatoes in my brain. And you know what? I'm just kidding, but you know what? Without butter too or gravy in
Yeah,
there either. You
yeah, a little more stiff.
know, you never know. I'm just kidding, but
Yeah,
but
your
you.
wife was saying you are hard headed. No.
She probably is, but you know, it's interesting because I feel lucky to be able to talk to you, not just because of your rodeo days, but I feel lucky because before I talked to you, I think it was 2 or 3 months before I talked to you about, I, I was listening to, I think it was Joe Rogan, and do you know who Jim Quick is? He wrote the
No, I
book,
don't.
he wrote the book about Limitless, it was called.
Okay.
And he's one of the, he's a brain, like, he's like the world's number one brain coach
Wow.
is what he's, and what happened was he was this funny. He had life in him. He tells a story. He had life in him, and then something happened, and you know the old oil uh, heaters in your house with the grates, and you know the bit
Yeah.
you know that he fell on one and on his head,
Ooh.
and he changed his
Ouch.
personality, and then the teacher said he couldn't learn. He was slow. They want to put him in special ed classes and all this other stuff. And he came out of this and he learned how to. I can't remember the whole story, and I got the book Limitless. Just got it again, and my wife had been reading it, and so I'm going to read it. But and I told her about this, and it's funny how she somehow got on this. But what I'm going with this is like I started looking at myself like, and I didn't know about the. I mean, I knew about concussions, and then I mean, we could even go like last week when Tua took the hit and he just stiffened up, and to me,
Yeah.
that's you're. I mean, I'd have to be done myself. That's personally, but
Right.
where I'm going with this is, I was learning, trying to learn about my brain because there's sometimes I think, did I say that or did I forget it? You know, and it's a
Yeah,
wife, and I know it could be selective hearing with my wife, but I understand that part. But you question yourself, and then I get to come out to Huron, and we sat there at supper and we started talking about this stuff, and it's like you just gave me more energy to learn about my brain. It's like,
cool.
and you know what I mean, and it's like maybe there is something to that, and love to. Tell. Why don't you just tell us your story here so I can, and then we can talk about other things because we
Sure.
might as well just get it out there so I can ask the other questions then.
Absolutely. I think that's a good place to really get rocking and rolling. Uh, let's see. I had a rodeo career that lasted right around 29, 30 years. I started out 4-H and high school rodeos, bareback steer wrestling, and a little bit of saddle bronc. I wasn't all very good in those, but I got to see that. Boy, these bullfighters, these guys protecting the bull riders, that looked pretty fun. And in high school, I played football, and I was the linebacker and a running back. So you're diving in there every play, offense and defense. I played
Yep.
both ways. So, um, a bullfighter kind of looks like he's got to have the speed and the moves of a running back, but he's got to have that mentality of a linebacker to stick his nose in there and make stuff happen. Be able to take a shot or give a shot. Um, and for those of you that may not know, a bullfighter in the rodeo is the guy that protects the bull riders. He's basically the easiest analogy is he's the Secret Service for the bull riders. Secret Service are to protect the president or whoever the person is that they're guarding or protecting. Their job is if someone is supposed to take a bullet, they shield that person with their body. You saw that with President Trump. You look back at Ronald Reagan, back when he got shot, there was a Secret Service agent that did step in the way and he took a bullet for him. Anyway, so that's what bullfighters do into bull riding. And it's your job to step in there, see a wreck, predict a wreck, and seeing and getting in there and stopping it before it happens, or get in there and take the wreck yourself before the bull rider gets smoked. Uh, and that's your job. You accept it, and that's what you do. As you can imagine, it can get very, very violent very quickly. Um, those bulls weigh, when I was um, going down the road, I weighed about 190, 95 pounds. So a lot of those bulls were 9 and 10 times my weight, my size. They had baseball bats coming out of both sides of their heads, some of them, and they are super powerful. Uh, to try to understand how powerful a rodeo bull is, or any bull, but especially these rodeo bulls, they're bred for it. A grown man can't take his arms and put it around that bull's neck and shoulders or around their neck and touch on the other side. Now imagine your bicep that big, and that's the power that they've got. I weighed 190, 95 pounds, and by the flick of the head, bunting me with the head or even with the horn, they would toss me 15, 10, 20 feet sometimes, and sometimes as high. And th- that's just the animal that I played with. And then there's also the Wrangler bullfights that they had. And that's where they have riderless bulls that they've done nothing to make them ornery or mean. They've just been bred that way for centuries to fight and kill man, these matador style, uh, we call them Mexican bulls.
Mhm.
They come out with a fire under their tail and they're territorial. And if you're in that arena, they will find you and they will run you out of there. But for us, it was a contest of baiting the bulls and waiting until they're so close before we move, duck and dodge them with our bodies, make different moves with them. Maybe use the clown barrel, the aluminum barrel that's padded on the inside and the outside, uh, and try to score points. Have more moves, more daring moves, um, and beat the other guys in competition that night. And so, as you can imagine, sometimes it's awesome So sometimes you're money, sometimes you're mud. They play for keeps. There's no calling timeout. You better do your job because they will do theirs. And if you don't do yours, you'll pay physically. So I got knocked out a few times fighting the freestyle bulls. Uh, so freestyle and the protection. So that was my job. That's what I did. And along with that, my 29, 30-year career there, and then also in high school, I remember looking back and analyzing things a little bit. Yeah, I had a concussion or two that I'm aware of playing football in high school. So I've had an accumulation of I've wrote them down the times and the places and what happened. Um, More than 20 times, less than 25 times that I know that I had a downright, I know I had a concussion because I was knocked out or extremely dazed, or dazed is a concussion too. So, and then all the other times that I just got jarred hard, or I went head to head, or I got hit hard by another guy when I was running the ball or trying to tackle a guy, saw stars. So, and then all the time protecting the bull riders, it'd be like, if a bull would hook you, get a hold of you, uh, and run you over, it'd be like in a car wreck. So sometimes, you know, my body would go through what would be the equivalency of somebody off the street that doesn't rodeo. I probably went through, I don't know, 20, 30 car wrecks a year when I would get smoked pretty hard doing my job. And that was just what I did. So I don't know how many concussions I could have had. I've had conversations with other guys that fought bulls at the same time I did and since and before. And I could have I could easily have a couple hundred concussions. When you
Hmm.
look at the
Yeah.
the mild concussions all the way to major concussions, the worst one that I know of is when I got kicked. I was working Fort Worth rodeo one year, got kicked in the back of the head, top of the head, knocked me out, and I had amnesia for 2 or 3 days.
Hmm.
Was in the hospital. That's the worst one that I would say that I had as far as knowingly affecting my mind at that time.
Yep.
So I had retired. I had been retired. I'd say about from fighting bulls. Well, from in the barrel, I worked the barrel for a few years towards the end of my career, and I figured out that my life was going to take a different path. So I stepped out of rodeo, and it was about 8 years or so that I really realized, boy, something's going on with my mind. I was dealing with a lot of depression, really depressed. I would be moody. Sometimes I would get um, towards in the last couple of years there, or year or so. What really got my attention was I would have outbursts of anger, almost rage sometimes.
Hmm.
Uh, just snap of a finger. I didn't feel myself getting that upset, but boom, and that scared me a lot. That scared. I didn't know if I was going to hurt somebody or uh, or what. Uh, so other symptoms that I had that were creeping up slowly, and they just came along over time, and I didn't recognize them happening when they did. It was just I couldn't tell, but I had a very hard time with remembering things very well. Remembering, I always have had a tough time remembering names, so I that's always been there. But
Hmm.
I would be in the middle of a conversation like we're talking right now, and I think we all forget where we're at in the place in the conversation once in a while.
Hmm.
Well, I would forget not only what I was talking about, I would forget the entire subject and couldn't pull it back. Um, I wasn't able to concentrate very well. Uh, I was seeing a mental health therapist for trying to deal with my depression, and he knew of my struggles with concussions or my history of concussions. And he's a Christian therapist, And he said, Jerry, pull out your Bible and just open it up to any page and read 3 or 4 verses, two, three, 4 verses, and read it out loud to me. So I did. And he says, okay, what do you recall that you read? I could tell him a couple of things. And he paused and he said, most people would remember quite a bit more than what you can recall. And that, what you just read to me a minute ago. So, based on uh, these symptoms I've shared with you, and then I had some like I was always felt like I was in a fog, a slight fog, or half a cog off, and just everything that I was doing all day long, all the time. Um, I was very apathetic. I was very didn't feel like doing anything, and oh yeah, I know I should do that. I need to do this. I need to do that. That's on my agenda, but uh, I don't care. I just my attitude was such that I that's just the way that my life was at that time.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I mean, I talk to people about some things in life, like there's things that you see every day. Like, I don't have kids, but I put it this in that way that you see things every day. Like, you never see your kids grow because you see them every day, unless you put a line
Yeah.
on the wall. You don't
Right.
see them grow. And here's what I'm wondering: did your wife notice these things? Did you discuss this with her at all?
Oh, she experienced them.
Well, yeah.
Uh, she experienced my grouchiness. I was always irritable, and I'd have the anger outbursts, or I was just depressed, and she'd talk to me, or we'd talk, and she'd try to help me out, or encourage me, or push me along, but you know, uh, it just wasn't working, and she was pretty concerned. And when that therapist told me, he said, you ought to have your brain examined. Literally, have your head examined, your brain examined, and he told me he talked about the Amen clinic. There's like 10 of them around the United States. They all do the same thing, and I made an appointment to go there. Well, I was talking to my wife Benita, and when I opened up or I talked to her about all this, she's like, "Yeah, this has gotten too far. This is, you know, when we sit down and talk about it and list it out, yeah, there's a lot of stuff you got going on, and it's not right. And yeah, let's go look into it." So before we went, I was very concerned that, well, I know enough about, or I studied, and I think I know in the back of my mind for a few years, I was concerned that my history of concussions, uh, that I don't know what it's done to me or not. I didn't have a preconceived notion like it'll do this or that. It was just like, huh, I wonder. So I've watched and read up on some of these ex NFL players, uh, football players, ex professional hockey players that had a number of concussions, and then they're uh, when they die, then when a person has head injuries and they after they die, they can take a sample of their brain and look at it under a microscope and see a certain protein in there. Yep, that is called CTE, or they have CTE. I don't remember the what that. I don't remember the exact words, uh, but it's encephalopathy or something like that is the
Yeah.
last one. But looking at that, I was like, oh my gosh, those guys hit their head a lot. I've hit my head a lot. So I started kind of like looking at it like, oh my goodness, what if?
Hmm.
And uh, those guys, the end of their life, the last couple few years, got to be dark and ugly. They would be, their families would fall apart. They would fall apart. They would become very aggressive. They were just, they mentally would deteriorate. Some of them would be dementia. It'd be a lot of dementia type uh, symptoms. Uh, and it was an ugly end of life, and I guess that was a fear of mine, and I didn't. It scared me.
Because I look
So
at
I was worried. Pardon me.
so, well, I mean, you look at the '80s and '90s, mostly the '80s and '90s world. I mean, wrestlers.
Yeah.
If
Right.
WWE, those wrestlers. You look at Chris Benoit. They said he had CTE, and
Yep.
these things and others that have died of that. I mean, and they're
Yes.
going. They're kind of I wouldn't. They're similar to rodeoers in the fact, except I think rodeoers get a little more time off because these guys are going from city to city to city every night, just about without
Right.
it. And who
Yep.
knows? You get a concussion in this city, you still have to work in that city tomorrow,
Right.
and that was their
Yep.
job. And they didn't. I don't know if they knew it, but I didn't mean to cut you off there. But it's just
No,
one of
that's okay.
those things that you see. Like this is it's when I start watching this, I feel that it's interesting, but it gives me more awareness, we'll say, of myself.
Sure.
And
Good.
you, like I said, when I met you, I mean, I thought about this stuff, and then the Jim Quick book and this and that, but
Right.
and listening to him, but you've given me more awareness. So anyway, I understand. Anyway, we'll get back to your story here, but
Sure.
I just want to say that there was it's amazing to look at how many people, once you start seeing that you're aware that there is a CTE, there is a
Yes.
deal with concussions, head
Right.
injuries.
Yep. Uh, yeah, they're a lot more common when you sit down and start thinking about it.
Yeah,
Thinking about yourself, thinking about people that you know, that you've seen and experienced. Uh, so to get back to my story, we made an appointment, and the nearest aiming clinic to us is in Chicago. So we went there, and they did what they call a SPECT scan. Um, it's a special type of scan of the brain. It looks at the brain's surface. Most of our, or all of our brain surfaces are kind of a little bit wavy. If you've ever seen a picture of the surface of the brain, it's a little bit wavy, has some creases in it, very normal. Um, so they took, they did kind of like two tests, one day, one the next day. One was under stress, one was relaxed, and then they compared them. And they consistently saw, and I've got the pictures, uh, the digital images of my brain. Uh, we were we had the appointments. Come back home a week or two later. We were on a Zoom call with the psychiatrist, or wasn't a neurologist, but the doctor anyway. That he was explaining things and what he finds, and they did a complete physical and mental history of me, everything that I could think of and share and knew. I gave that all to him. Also, my family history, my siblings and my parents, uh, just whatever I could, information I had, I'd share with them, or that they wanted, I'd share with them. So they had that too. And they had a list of, yeah, I said at that time, I identified I had 20 concussions. Um, so they took a picture of my brain, and we saw two images. One image was of the brain surface. My brain surface was not just wavy, it was like you were looking down on a rocky ridge, or maybe like a mountain range. It just a lot of peaks and valleys, and just a lot of different, very, very rough surface. And the doctor was saying these are all the results of concussions. Every time you have a concussion, your brain is injured. This is an injury for your brain. And they were all over. All four lobes of my brain were damaged, and he could point to areas of my brain on that scan. He said, right in this location, you're probably dealing with depression. This location, you're probably dealing with memory problems. This location, you're probably dealing with irritability. You're just, and bam, bam, bam. He was just nailing every one of them. I had that. Uh, so the next image was one of they put a radioactive dye in me, and then took another picture of my blood vessels and the blood flow in my within my brain. Looked like a big old map, but in some areas it was glowing red, some areas it was white. It was mostly blue, and he was pointing to them. He says that your brain's overactive in this area, is underactive in that area. This is causing problems. And there were some areas where there was just low blood flow. Some areas there's extra blood flow. But there was more areas that I recall that were lower in the blood flow. And looking at those two
Well,
images, Ricky,
hey,
Ricky,
Norton, how are you, sir?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Good. I'm good. Hopefully, I didn't
Good
interrupt
deal.
anything too important.
well, well, he's
Well, we're
telling
right.
us the story of his brain. It's red, white, and blue.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Uh, so, so, so I had it's patriotic, but uh, we were just in the middle of me talking about. I went to have my brain checked out, literally,
Mm-hmm.
examined my brain at the Amen Clinic there in Chicago, and the images showed that I had damages to all four lobes of my brain, really rough spots instead of wavy, and then also the blood flow was not what it should be. Some areas was pretty low, and some were like overactive. And when I saw those two images, I was at that moment I wanted to just crawl in a hole and disappear
Right.
because it was my worst fears coming true.
Mhm.
I thought about those ex NFL players and NHL players, and that the end of their years was with dementia and their brain just deteriorated,
Mm-hmm.
and their lives deteriorated and fell apart. So yeah, I was getting pretty emotional, and I like I said, I wanted to just disappear. And the doctor said, "But we can heal the brain." My wife is a nurse, and we look at each other and like, I never heard of that.
Mm.
So he's like, "Yeah, we can." And he said, "Here's some things that I want you to do based on the my personal history that I gave him." And I was struggling with apnea, sleep apnea. I was struggling with an incredible amount of pain from some old injuries, uh, and then you know, so he said, "Get a hold of that, get that under control, the sleep apnea." So I went through with that. He gave me a list of about five things. It was apnea, get the pain under control. So I started seeing a pain specialist and was getting that under more control. And
was
then
was
changed
that
my
pain? Was that pain in your brain or your body?
noise in my body.
Okay.
It was in my neck. I've had my neck uh, worked on a couple of times, and it's yeah, it just gives me uh, still today it gives me problems.
Yep.
It's better and it's not more manageable. Um, he got me on antidepressants and a mood stabilizer, um, and then changed my diet. He said you have to go uh, as cut out as much sugar as you can because sugar feeds inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
It just feeds it. So, and here we are in the Midwest, all the starches, our bodies turn starches into sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Breads, pastas, potatoes, uh, try to cut that out or cut it down or eat differently. As far as if you're going to have something along that line, not so heavy in the starches. And then sugars. Oh my gosh, sugars and everything. Uh, so we dove into those things. And the last thing he said was 40 rounds of 41-hour treatments of uh, in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. Well, we could do those the others, and we did. Change the diet, really low in sugar, and I was like hardcore. I was like, I got to something's got to improve. Life is not going well. So we did all those, and it improved a little bit. I'd say maybe 15-20%, and but I was still struggling with the memory, with the fogginess, and just the just didn't feel like doing anything. Very very low in motivation to do anything, and so well this hyperbaric chambers. There must be something to it. That's the last thing to check off the list. So Benita and I were sitting down uh, one night and talking about it, and I looked up online and found a hyperbaric clinic that would work. And well, first of all, wound clinics have hyperbaric oxygen chambers, but because they're affiliated with a hospital organization like Avera or some healthcare, Sanford around here, gosh, there's different regions of the countries, there's different
Yeah.
ones. So the FDA regulates pure oxygen, and pure oxygen is a drug, a controlled drug. So if it's a controlled drug, it can only be used for things that the FDA uh, recognizes and allows. Uh, if you're with a healthcare organization, so they're bound by the FDA at hospitals or those uh, healthcare organizations. So what we found was a clinic in Fargo, North Dakota called Healing with Hyperbarics. There's two of them up there. The one that I recommend and went to and would go to again is Healing with Hyperbarics.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they are a standalone clinic. So they're not bound by the stricter FDA regulations of, you know, you can't treat concussions or post concussion syndrome with oxygen at with hospitals or those healthcare systems. So a standalone clinic, they are a lot freer to treat whatever they want. Of course, it's appropriate and whatnot, but they are more free to try and heal things and apply for different things, apply it to different things. And they've been super, super successful. Uh, as God would have it, we found this place up in Fargo, and the doctor that started, she's got a clinic in Chicago, not affiliated with the Amen Clinic, but she happens to have a clinic in Chicago, and she has the one in Fargo that she's involved with. She is one of the leading clinicians in the United States on uh, treating uh, concussion concussions with hyperbarics. Like, how lucky could I get? How
Yeah.
blessed, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, so she is super knowledgeable. That clinic is super knowledgeable about how to treat it. Well, there's a cost to it, and it's not covered by insurance. And you know, Benita and I were looking at each other, and it's like, well, it's this or just basically suck it up and deteriorate and die. Is the way I saw it,
Mm-hmm.
because I could look back and over time I was deteriorating. So we said, okay, what's life worth? You know,
Yeah.
let's let's go. Bit the bullet, made some things work, and God provided some favors in different areas, and we went up there and spent the summer in a camper up in Fargo, North Dakota. I got my 40 treatments, and through my treatments, I've shared this a few times before. Through my treatments, you know, remember I said I was pretty pessimistic and you know just didn't really care wasn't about a whole lot. So I bought them in packs of 10. It was a little bit cheaper. So I bought the first pack. I did 10. There were 41-hour treatments total. So I did the 10. I bought another pack of 10 and about 15, number 15. There's a doctor there the whole time that clinic is operating. When its doors are open, I called him over there and I said, Doc, I'm not feeling anything. And it seems like I should be. And when I'm done with this 10, I'm done. I'm I'm just gonna go home. I was I was starting to accept that my end of my life was like it was gonna be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he paused and he said, Jerry, he said, you have to realize what's going on in this environment. When you put yourself in that environment, it's 100% pure oxygen, 100%. What we're breathing right now all over the world is roughly about 21% oxygen in the atmosphere. In there, it's 100%, and it's under pressure. I thought in my head, okay, the pressure. Oh my gosh, am I going to be able to breathe very deep? What's it going to feel like? The only thing I felt It's very, very much like going up and down in an airplane. Your ears pop because of the pressure changes. That was the only thing that I felt. I could breathe just fine. Didn't make me feel weird or anything funny physically, or mentally. Uh, so he said, "What's going on when you're in there is neurogenesis and angiogenesis are the medical terms. Where neurogenesis, you're growing and creating new nerve tissue. Angiogenesis, you're creating new venous tissue. Bingo! I flashed back to those pictures that I saw of my brain. Oh, those damaged parts can be healed, or I can at least grow new nerve tissue within the brain. Hey, that sounds good. And then I pictured also venous tissue, new arteries or veins. I'll get better blood supply if I go through with this. If I keep going down this road." I said, "All right, doc, you got me for a while. Let's keep going." So about 24 treatments in, I started sensing something. And boy, I was hopeful. And I thought, well, am I just like wishing this? So I feel in this way. Is it really real? Just questioning it. But boy, it just kept continuing to get a little bit better. And at about 28 or 29, I talked to Benita and I said, "Hey, I haven't said anything, but for a few treatments now, for a week or so, something's different. Something's changing." And you know what she told me? She says, "Yeah, I know." I'm like, "What do you mean, you know? Why didn't you say anything?" She said, "Well, I wanted it to be your experience."
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. She said, "I didn't want to give you false hope. I wanted to see if you noticed anything." And I just felt more crisper, a little like more alert. Uh, she said, if you think about it, our conversations that we've had, they've been deeper than we've ever had in the 5, 6 years 6, 7 years that we've been together. We're having deeper, more meaningful conversations than we ever have.
Mm.
I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. Uh, so, oh yeah, she said, well, I can tell something's different because you're less rigid. I'm like, what does that mean? She was being kind. She could have used some
Yeah.
other words, but
Mm.
well, she said you're more easygoing. You're easier to talk to. You don't have quite the edge you did. Uh, I'm like, all right. I also called one of my brothers that I had talked to a few times a week when I was going through this, and he kept asking me, "Are you noticing anything? Are you noticing anything?" I'm like, "Oh no, I don't know. No, I'm not." Well, after I talked to Benita, I shared it with her first, of course, and then I called my brother. Mind you, I was only talking to him on the phone.
Yep.
And I said, "Al, something's going on. Something's different. I don't know what it is." And Al said, "Yeah, I know." Like, okay, you've been talking to Benita or what? How can you tell over the phone?
Yeah.
And he said, "Before, when you talked, he said, I could tell you were trying to find the words as you were saying this sentence. You were searching for them as you were talking, so you talk slower." He said, "No, you just talk." Like, I had no idea that it was that way.
Mm.
That I would was showing up that way.
Hmm.
So I was like, "All right, we're balls to the walls now, boys and girls. Let's go." So we kept going, or I kept going, and daily, uh, and I did 40, and it just got a little better all the time. And I had improved so much in that mine. I realize now I could have done two a day instead of one a day. I realized that about halfway through. So I could have gotten through there faster, but I was up there roughly almost 2 months. So, because there was only 5 days a week that we could do it. Uh, I say we because Benita was up there with me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I felt so good. And they said, boy, you seem like you're so much better than when you started, the people at the clinic. They said, do you mind if we shoot a video of you and just you can share your experience because you seem like you're doing really well. I'm like, absolutely, I'll do whatever. You guys, this is like turning my life around.
Mm-hmm.
So we shot a video, did a like an interview, answering questions, telling my experience. Um, so it took them a little bit to edit it and clip it, get it clipped up and put together in a package. About ready to release it out, I think, on social media, and they sent it to me about 2 months later. And I said, "What do you think?" I didn't reply. I sent it to Benita. I said, "What do you think? What do you see?" And she saw the same thing that I did. She said, "That's not you. You're much better than that." This was 2 months after I finished my treatment,
Huh.
the hyperbaric treatments. So we told them that we were going to meet up with a couple of the people from their clinic. The clinical director was one, and they said, I said, "Well, bring your video equipment along, and we'll shoot another video." And when they showed up, they hadn't seen me for 2 months. When they showed up, they were flabbergasted. They're like, "Oh my gosh, you are so different. You've continued to improve." Because if they started that growing new nerve tissue and venous tissue, it continued for a while. After my treatment, so I just kept improving uh, for a period of time, and I tell you that made me like want to do cartwheels because I felt pretty good when I left there, and I realized I was probably able to do twice the workload at school. I had
Hmm.
taken on a project, and that I'm a school counselor, and I took on a project that was like a lot of mind work and busy work. Uh, so I'm not kidding. Going through all this is giving me my life back. It's been a year later, more than a year later. None of the symptoms have not come back. I don't feel uh, lethargic. I don't feel the depression. I'm not moody like that. I don't have that brain fog. I can remember things better than I did. Um, it's I'm almost night and day. And if someone would walk up and tell me this story, in my head I'd be thinking, "Yeah, you're full of crap, buddy." But this is my story. This is what I experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And what's cool about it that I look at it now is that, and I'm a proponent, and my wife is, we will shout it from the mountaintops what hyperbarics can do for brain injuries, for concussions, uh, but at a standalone clinic, they can treat a lot more things than they can at a one that's affiliated with a healthcare company. Uh, One other thing that when I was there, and I'll wrap up my story there. Uh, when I was there, they kept asking me. They would do your vitals before you get into the chamber each time, and it was hard-sided chambers, hyperbaric chambers. There's a significant difference between a hard-sided and a soft-sided. But they would check my vitals and ask me how I'm doing, how do I feel, are you feeling any more pain, any less pain? And about halfway through, I'm like, why do you guys always ask me about my pain? Because that's got nothing to do with what I'm here for. And they're like, well, it has been known to help with pain. It's known to heal tissue and bone at a faster rate than if you weren't having hyperbaric treatments. I'm like, really? They said, yeah, but that's more at a little bit deeper pressure for a 2 hour time period at a time instead of 1 hour treatment. It's a 2 hour treatment. And so Dr. Luistro, the doctor that is up there in Fargo, he was telling me that, and I said, "Doc, let's just start doing the 2 hour ones for my brain and my pain." And he says, "No, just a hard no." He says, "We treat the brain first. When that's all good and normal, then we'll proceed. If you want to, we can do that. If you still feel like you want to try to treat the pain." So my pain level was about an 8 or a 9, 24/7. It was that was just part of why I was miserable and why I was grouchy was that. Uh, so after those 40 treatments, um, so we were there, like, man, if this does help, because I'm like over the moon about how it's done with my brain.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, I'm a believer in this stuff. Let's try it for the pain. So they said you'll do 3 to 4 treatments before you'll realize if it can help you or not. That's just the way it goes. So after 3 treatments, I was like, I do feel a little better. And I'm thinking, well, is this just in my head or what? So let's do another one. 4, yeah, I am feeling a little better. 5, 6, 7, and 8, I went down. So if I was at an 8 or a 9, I went down about a notch and a half or a point and a half after every treatment. So by the
Hmm.
time I hit 7, I was at 0. And this was
Holy
in
moly.
under a week. I swear this was under a week. And the pain that I was living in to go into 0, I didn't know if it could ever happen. And then to happen that quickly, I still struggle to wrap my mind around, like, that is such a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a pretty high pain tolerance and I can handle a lot of pain, but I'm telling you, it was a hardcore 8 or 9 and it went down to 0.
Wow.
And I'm like, I'm even higher on it. I could tell you, I could tell you so much more about what it does, or what, it oxygenates your cells at the cellular level. It oxygenates your cells, and it reduces the inflammation. With the concussions, it's a brain injury. There's swelling. There's inflammation. Our brain, our skull has no extra room for swelling. So, yeah, any little bit's going to cause some problems. So it reduces the inflammation, and then, so with it reducing inflammation, think about it. If you have a surgery, what they shared with me is, if I'm going to have a surgery on my neck or any part of my body, uh, to correct my neck stuff, or if somebody's going to have a surgery, they said come in and do 2 or 3 treatments before surgery to oxygenate your blood and your cells, and then as soon as you can comfortably sit for 2 hours in this chamber, and there's plenty of room in the chamber, uh, come back for a couple more. It will reduce the recovery time to 60%.
Hmm.
There's studies after studies that they've done. It shows that 60% compared to 6 days instead of 10 days,
Right.
sort of
Yeah.
thinking. And on their concussions, if a person comes in within 10 days after a concussion, their average they've done thousands of people that have come in with a concussion, and their study is about to be published, so it's quite a long ways into their study. The average number of treatments until a person reports that they feel good, they're back to normal, is 3.8 treatments.
Hmm.
3.8 1-hour treatments. You can do 2 treatments in one day. That's 2 days, guys.
Jeez.
Wow.
And I've had 2 kids, a 6th grader and a 3rd grader at my school. He got hit in the head, one by I think both of them were by basketball. One was a boy, one was a girl. The boy was had basically passed out. He wasn't eating. His appetite wasn't normal. He had bad headache and he was throwing up for about 3 days. His mom comes to me after church and says, "What do I do?" She had heard about my experience. I said, "If it was me, I'd be there in the morning when the doors open, 6 hours away in Fargo. I'd be there
Mm-hmm.
when the doors open." And she was. 3 days later, he was back, and he didn't have any more symptoms. He had
That's
four treatments.
Hmm.
that's amazing. That is
Wow.
truly amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It,
I have a
it, it,
question for you. Like, what does it feel like to be in the chamber?
um, well, at first I was a little self-conscious because all you can wear are scrubs, uh, because it has to be 100% cotton. You can't wear a ball cap. You can't wear a shirt. You can't wear underwear in there, because it's got to be 100% cotton, because you don't want the those man-made chemicals that the clothes are made of, nylon or rayon or whatever that things are made of, to be pushed into your cellular your cells.
Mm.
You know,
Mhm.
yeah, I know I don't want that. So
No.
at first I was a little self-conscious. It's like this feels weird, but the only thing I felt ever was my ears would pop. They give you a bottle of water uh, that you can sip on some water to help your ears pop, or you yawn or open your mouth and pop your ears. Guys, when it would pressure up and when it would pressure down, that's what I would feel. I tested it because I'm a skeptical person anyway. Uh, the first couple times I was in there, I tried really hard to breathe as deep as I could to see if I was limited at all. I didn't feel any restriction at
Huh.
all on any of the nearly 50 treatments that I took with the 40 plus those eight. I didn't, I thought that's all I felt. And now, in those um, hyperbaric chambers that they have there, uh, they are hard sided. It's a thick acrylic uh, tube with a like a steel frame, uh, but 3/4 of it is clear, and then you're on a hospital gurney or something in there, and it's tilted up. You got a couple of pillows, uh, and you could see out to pass the time. They had a big TV screen by my feet. I could knock on the side. They'd answer. There's a technician right there the entire time you're in there. They'd pick up the phone to the speaker inside, and I'd talk to them. It's like, hey, can you turn the volume up, or can you change the channel, or whatever it was. I'll tell you what, I caught up on a lot of TV shows and movies. That's a lot to be sitting there. Uh, that I passed the time. Once in a while, when I would come out, I'd be slightly lightheaded, but that passed very quickly. Um,
Is that because you're coming out into less oxygen then? Like the normal
may,
atmospheric oxygen.
I don't know if that was the case, but maybe I was just like was filled with oxygen, or I wasn't used to being, that I don't know, alert, or that it's not. It doesn't like wire you.
Mm.
It doesn't
Yeah.
wire you like that, but it just kind of raises the alertness. Oh, the other thing it'll do, the only other thing that it'll do, it speeds your metabolism up a little bit. That might have something to do with the lightheadedness.
Mhm.
But I would come out of those 2 hour ones hungry.
Mm.
Hmm.
My wife would knew that, so we've gotten a lot more wiser, aware of foods and what we need to eat uh, to fuel your body, etc. So she knew that we were going to go out for chicken strips, or she should bring some chicken strips after my 2 hour treatment. you know, high in protein, feed the muscle, feed the tissue. So yeah, I'd come out, boy, I'd be hungry as a bear sometimes. Uh, but and I don't mind eating.
Well, I hear you there.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
so I'm curious.
yeah,
Um I know you probably don't need to do it because you feel better physically. All your
yep.
pain is gone. Have you ever thought about getting another brain scan and have them do the testing to see where the blood flow is and stuff like that to see if there's any more, I guess, empirical data that shows that there's been healing in your brain?
Yeah, I did. I did. I went back up the end of May
Okay.
this year and had the same scans done again, and they showed me the improvement.
Wow.
Uh, is it perfect? No, but there's damage, but uh, I feel pretty normal. They say, yeah, I feel normal. I feel good. I haven't regressed in 12 months. Um, so before I left after the 40 plus those eight that I did, I asked the doc, I said, well, because of the for the muscle and bone, the tissue and bone, that deeper pressure I did, he said, now because you know it'll it'll last 5 or 6 months. He said, think in about 5 or 6 months, think about coming back and for a couple more treatments.
Mm-hmm.
And right away, I was like, doggone it. So, am I going to have to come back and do that for the brain too? I mean, I was kind of like instantly getting torqued, like, this is a
Yeah.
gimmick, or,
Mm-hmm.
He said, well, whoa, whoa. He said, no. He said, remember what I told you? He said, you grew new nervous venous tissue and new nerve tissue. You grew it. It's not going away. I'm like, holy crap, that is like the coolest thing he could have ever told me.
Yep. Yeah.
So I went back to Chicago this last end of May after school was out, had the scan again, and they showed me that it is improved. Uh, yeah, it's improved from where it was. It hasn't gotten worse for dang sure. Uh, you know, but I don't anticipate that it would like heal like a completely normal brain. There's probably some scar tissue type of
Right.
stuff in there.
Right.
Uh, yeah, it's guys, it's just a truly amazing story that I would have had. I had to experience it to believe it.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, I have had a dozen to 12 to 15 people reach out to me after they've heard about this and ask about it. Whoop, hold on, guys.
You're
There, I'm
fine.
back. Uh, I've had
You're in the
people
shade
reach
now.
out to
Oh,
me.
okay.
uh, I had well, Cody Custer was one.
Yep.
He heard about it and he called me up and he says, "Tell me about your story." And I told him pretty much what I just shared with you guys. And he says, and Rick, I think you remember this. He said, "It's like you're describing my symptoms."
Yeah.
He said, "You're telling me you're describing what I've got going on."
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I know that there's been a few people that have gone up there to Fargo or even to different places
Mm-hmm.
and gotten treated, and they have had success. A really cool one was I've done another podcast with Flint Rasmussen, and
Mm-hmm.
that one has been out for a few months. And there was a young lady, early 20s, I think, that was getting some treatment for previous concussions, and she was about ready to check out. She was about ready to quit, just like I was. And they suggested to her, said there was somebody else that came through here that was doing the same thing you're doing. Here's that podcast that he did about his experience. Maybe you want to. They said, give that a listen. And the next day she come back and she says, okay, I'll do some more. And I don't know the results. She did more, and hopefully it helped her. But I'm
But
finding
like you're,
out.
go ahead.
I'm finding out this the we don't know the people that we reach or what reaches people or what speaks to people. But just sharing my story is hitting, impacting people and making a difference. I've had half a dozen people call me or reach out to me uh, on social media and say, "Hey, my son-in-law or my son or my daughter, I think they might have something going on. Would you mind talking to them, or what would you say that I should talk to them about, or what should they do?" I'll share everything that I can and all that I can. Uh, I uh, One day out of the blue, I had a friend. It turns out to be a friend of Flint Rasmussen's, a guy that used to played 6 years in the NFL as a linebacker. Uh, Dane Fletcher. I played for the New England Patriots. He called me up and he says,
Hmm.
Tell me what you know, everything that you know." I'm like, "Sure." Uh, and he was just quiet. And he said, "I just got back from spending a week. The NFL just flew me and some other guys out and did testing on our minds and our bodies for a week. And they didn't tell me any of this stuff. They didn't tell him about or share with any of those guys the SPECT scan, the hyperbaric treatments, uh, the details as far as your food. It's kind of a Mediterranean diet. It's really light in starches and sugars. Uh, you know, more of the proteins." He was tickled to hear about it, and he says this gives me a lot to go on. So I've talked to him once since then. He has gotten himself he has a gym out there in Montana, and kind of progressive. He's really into taking care of self, having classes and having things that people can come and partake and take care of themselves. Uh, but I like that he's testing out. His wife shared with him. He shared with me that his wife says maybe you should do something about the. You played hard for years and banged your head a lot. Maybe you should look into just doing something. I don't know if he has the symptoms or not. He didn't share that with me, and that's his business. But
Mm-hmm.
uh, his wife has shared, yeah, you should look into at least checking this stuff out. So he did by reaching out to me for one of the things that he did, and then he went and got himself a soft-sided hyperbaric unit and is self-treating. Um, I hope it's doing wonders for him. He's checking it out and he's to experience it himself before he puts it in his gym, which I respect the heck out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just like there's some places that it's kind of beginning to be a little bit of a fad. Like, oh, this doctor's office or chiropractor's office is like, oh, we have a hyperbaric. Yep, they do, and they have their place, but they need to be very wise and careful of what they say that they'll do, and they better know what they're doing. Uh, I have had a lot of discussions with the doctors, the one from Chicago and the one running the clinic in Fargo, um, and some others, and all studies on hyperbaric chambers treatments, hyperbaric oxygen treatments, all studies have been done with a hard-sided chamber. Now, a soft-sided chamber, you could kind of say it's not a plastic. It's like a heavy material. You get in there, you can zip it up, um, uh, and I know, like I shared with you before, oxygen is a controlled drug,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very specific on how it's handled and how it's transferred into the hyperbaric unit. Uh, a soft-sided can only get up to 1.5 uh, atmospheres of pressure. So, like right now, we feel a pressure of 1. It's normal to us. In there, it's doubled. Well, double of what you feel at nothing is, it
Yeah.
feels like nothing, but it's a higher pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it's at least a 2 to treat the concussions and post concussion syndrome. Uh, the soft sided can only get to 1.4 atmospheres. Uh, so you're not getting the same kind of treatment. And I do not know if 1.5 for more treatments will be the same as 40 at 2.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I have that's way beyond my knowledge. Uh, but I just want to encourage people that by all means look into it. Do your research. You can find you can reach out to me via social media, or possibly I could share it with you guys. Where there is it's called treatnow.org. Treatnow.org. On there, you can go. You can search by state where there are hyperbaric oxygen chamber uh, treatment centers or clinics, maybe even wound centers. I don't know all of what the criteria is for that, but at treatnow.org, you can
Yeah.
search by state. Uh, and there's more being added all the time. Uh, there's another link. It's a really, really good book. I can't think of it right now, but it talks about all the different things that hyperbaric oxygen chambers treat. There's a few things that are covered by insurance, which is some stroke victims, some conditions from a stroke, uh, like diabetic wounds that don't heal, like on their feet or on their legs, the ulcers that just don't heal, skin ulcers. Uh, there was a guy up in Fargo that was about to have his leg amputated, and he thought, "Well, I'll try this." He still got his leg.
Hmm.
It's it gives the body it's a natural state for our body. And actually, there's a speaker that talks about back before the flood, like of Noah's Ark, the Great Flood, the atmosphere was a higher pressure atmosphere back then and more pure oxygen. And they discovered that there was some petrified sap from back then, and there was air bubbles in that petrified sap. And they tested the pressure and the quality of the air in there, and it was a higher pressure and higher oxygen content.
Hmm.
Now,
Yeah.
I haven't studied that, but I'm passing on what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's God's original plan right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I've been following along, and you've been raising a lot of awareness for suicide, and it's
It's Suicide Awareness
Suicide
Month,
Awareness Month.
September. Absolutely.
and so I'm checking
Yes. Well,
treat.org you were talking about, and it even says heal brains, stop suicides, and restore lives. So the hyperbaric chamber
yeah,
also help with that too.
yeah, and I haven't shared this a lot, but I'll share it. As very open public here on a podcast. uh, think about that, Jerry. No, uh, you
Well, we
know
aren't the number one podcast in the world right now, so you're probably limited. I'm just kidding.
what?
We're
You're
working
on
on
your way.
number one in South Dakota for sure.
Yeah,
it.
there
There
you
we
go.
go.
I wasn't suicidal, but in the state of mind and in the condition that I was in, I could understand. I could see, and to me, in that, I'm not condoning or I'm not saying it should be something you think about or do. I think it's wrong because it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And you leave a lot of hurt behind. I've known people that have committed suicide, several, and yeah, that pain just doesn't go away for people. Uh, uh, I wasn't suicidal, but I had an understanding of how a person could seem to make sense of it because of the agony and the misery that 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 I was in. And if it would have got worse, I don't, I don't know what I'd have done or thought of. But yeah, so getting help, it helped me, and I believe it helps others from killing themselves. Or part of what my worry was, if it continued to get worse, I was afraid I was going to spend the rest of my life in jail
Yeah.
because I was going to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
Just the rage that would come out
Mhm.
and the anger, just like and unpredictable. And so yeah, I'm dead serious. It scared me that bad, and that's a pretty serious thing to say, but I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
It it scared me that much. It worried me, and I won't say who it is, but I know some guys that uh, used to play football, pro football, and they know guys that they believe that's what took them. Well, Junior Seau is one.
Yeah.
Junior Seau, I don't know how many time All Pro or Pro Bowl linebacker for the Chargers, shot himself in the chest.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Webster, 20 years in the NFL, he played in those winning teams for the Steelers, late 70s, early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
He lost his mind. He was living in a pickup by a lake, pulling out his teeth with the pliers.
Yeah.
It's just deteriorating, and yeah, there's the rage. There's the that Hernandez that killed a couple
Aaron.
of people.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron,
Yep,
yeah,
Aaron.
he used to play football.
Yeah.
Uh, there's Ty Posabon, who was from Canada, a young, like 23 years old or something, and I think these facts are, I think I'm right on. Within a week of winning like 100,000, he's a bull rider. He'd had some bad concussions, and people knew that he was struggling from them, depression, and that he ended up taking his own life. Young guy, and was married. It's horrible, and there's treatment out there. for concussions. So speak up. If you see something, say something.
Mm-hmm.
Speak up, talk to that person, or talk to somebody that can help them.
And that's
Yeah,
what
it's
Ricky and I have been pushing too. I mean, I always use sometimes the wrong word, but advocating or something like, I mean, and we talked about this. I posted the other day, you either are you need to be somebody's glow or you need to be their sunbeam, the beam of ray of sun.
yeah,
But we have to notice when people might be struggling, and that smile, that conversation, that listen. The
yeah,
listen is sometimes more important than that. To maybe switch that mind off. Like, I was thinking about doing this, but you know what? This guy just talked to me and listened, and I'm
yeah,
not going to go do that. And you were talking about all these football players, and I hate to say this, and I'm going to try to lighten up the moment just for a second.
sure.
But you're talking about all these 70s and 80s football stars, well, 90s, junior Seau, but uh, my favorite team is the Dallas Cowboys, and I don't think they could have CT because they were high all the time. I'm just kidding. But we did win Super Bowls.
Yeah, yeah. How long ago?
I know. Yeah, we don't know what they were, whatever. Michael Irvin. We could go to
Yeah,
Hollywood
they
Henderson.
some of those guys got in their fair share of trouble. That's
I
for
just thought
sure.
we better lighten up the moment just a
Yeah.
little bit. The Vikings have never seen a Super Bowl, but that's besides the point. I mean, a
Yeah,
trophy,
Yeah.
except for the other team.
Stick, stick and
right.
stones may break my bones. I don't watch football, so
Yeah, yeah,
be talking about my
but
Minnesota Wild. All right,
yeah. There you go.
yeah,
have some problems.
but no, yes, but no. I mean, I just think I like what you're doing, Jerry, and the cool thing is when you got done with rodeo,
Hmm.
you came home and you did the you're a school counselor now, helping
Yeah,
people.
yeah. I'm in my ninth year of doing that, uh, and I think back. Uh, it's been a solid 20 years when I quit rodeoing full time. I did it after college. I did it for a solid 15 years. That's all I did for a living. And I'd work for a guy, a farmer, a rancher, help out a little bit once in a while, and off time. But that was my the way I made a living, and I was very very fortunate. Uh, I was a top 10 in the world for 10 years. I won a world championship in '98, uh, and I've kind of wondered why I was so blessed, why I was so fortunate, why God chose me for that, to be so blessed, and maybe it's because of this. Maybe it gives me some sort of credibility in the rodeo world or in the world, in a sense, to like, yeah, here's a story of you know a real life story of struggles, uh, of just life, and maybe it gives me a bit of a platform or something where I can talk to people and share with people like, hey, this is real. It's I think it takes a stronger man to admit his weakness than one to just be tough.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, just like as any much as any other man, I like to be tough too. I really do. We all do. It's in
Yeah.
our DNA.
Yeah.
Uh, but I'm growing to and getting to a point in maturity and wisdom in life of just appreciating life more, uh, and valuing life, valuing others, valuing people, caring. I'm a school counselor. I'm also I work uh, when I'm not at school. I'm uh, a mental health therapist, uh, and I enjoy doing that. It's helping people. So like for the last 25 years is where I'm going. 25 years. I've been involved in helping people. Uh, I'm drawn to it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I love
This
your outlook on.
thing. Oh, go ahead.
I love your outlook on the whole situation. About how, just the path that God has put before you. And when you get to a certain point in your life, and this is part of why me and Rick do this, because you got to feel like you have some purpose. You want to feel like you're helping people.
Yes.
You want to, and these are the perfect conversations. I had never even heard about the hyperbaric treatments until
Right.
Rick had you guys on the podcast, and then him and I were talking a little bit about it, and then I had a chance to listen to the episode that you did with According to Flint, and I'm just thinking, why are we not talking about this? Why is it?
Right.
I don't see a lot of research, or I don't see a lot of case studies about it just yet, but I have seen some clinics saying that it could also possibly help with addiction as well. And I
Yeah.
imagine any amount of repair that you can do to your brain could help with all sorts of things. I mean, the addiction,
Yeah.
whatever it is that you're abusing is obviously probably causing some damage to your brain long term. And so by healing that and repairing that, I can imagine it may help with that as well. And it's very intriguing to me, while you guys were talking, I was kind of looking into it a little bit. And it's certainly not something that you can just go into the sock drawer and say, let's do 40 sessions, but it's more
Right.
reasonably priced than I would have thought, for what it
Yeah.
can do. So I'm
Oh,
super intrigued.
yeah. Yeah. What's life worth? That's what it came down to us. And as I look back, it's like, oh, that's a bargain.
Uh,
Uh, it 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 costs roughly around 230 or so a treatment, roughly
mm-hmm.
230, something like
Yeah.
that. And yeah, you can't go and have a surgery for under 40,000,
Right.
but you got insurance that covers it, right?
Yeah.
It's you can easily have a 60, 70, $80,000 surgery with all the people involved and all the things involved. But yeah, it's pretty reasonable, really.
Yeah.
Uh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But one thing I'd really like to make sure people understand that if you're going to do this hyperbaric treatments, that be all in and be committed. I've had a friend or two that have heard about my experience and they're, yeah, I want to try that. So they go and try it and don't fully go through, like if they're going for their pain issues or something like that. They don't, they'll go and do a few treatments and like, oh, I don't feel anything. Duh, I know. But it's really important that if people are going to do it, they realize what they're going to get into and how many times that they're going to go for treatment and follow through all the way, because that's where you're going to get the true full effects. Like if I would have quit at 15 treatments, 20 treatments in, I don't know where my life would be. But it's different now because I stuck with it. And it's such a new to the world or new treatment modality for struggles and illnesses and things like that, that people try it. What I don't like is that people will try it and then they won't follow through, but then they'll badmouth it, or they'll like say, "Oh, it doesn't really work for me." Well, sure it didn't. That's like taking, putting half a band-aid on and letting the rest bleed. I mean, so I really
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
reiterate that it's important that if somebody's going to do the hyperbaric treatments, that they follow through with it and do the complete number of treatments
Yeah.
recommended. It'll make all
Yeah.
the difference for them. Plus, I think it'll affect the future of success of hyperbaric treatments.
Well, I believe that too. I mean, that's good advice right there.
Thank you.
When we were talking about you were talking about the platform that you're on, and I honestly, and maybe it's because I've been around the country, and I shouldn't say the country, but I've been around rodeo a little
Mm-hmm.
bit, not like you, of course, but when Cody came over to talk to me in Huron,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, is it all right if Jerry Norton comes and has supper with us? I said, well, that's cool. And it wasn't, and you want to know something funny about this is, some people would not know who you are in that aspect, but I knew exactly who you were. And that is a platform. You know what
Yep.
I mean? It's like, there was no question. I thought, well, I'm going to go have this is. Then my mind starts going. I start getting a little brown gravy going in my brain there, and going, I have a world champion cowboy and I have a world champion bullfighter, and I'm going to go have supper with them. And now, Ricky, I told you I was going to do just Cody Custer, but this is an opportunity that I can't let go. I'm going to have a bullfighter and a bull rider.
Yeah.
But where I'm going with this, Jerry, is Ricky and I started this to influence or get people thinking about life. Get thinking about how to improve your
Yep.
life. And we are certainly not preachers, but I like to be one sometimes. But when we started talking about purpose, and we don't
Mhm.
know who we touch, but Ricky and I have known. You've had people have messaged us, and we've touched people. But for all of this, any word or anything that we can get out, because I am so interested in this. But if if somebody can go get a treatment or whatever, it's the choices that they make is the choices we
Right.
make. And if it makes if I don't know if it's because I'm getting older and I'm starting to think more about time and life and how precious it
Yep.
is, and things affect me a little bit more. But you're talking about toughness, and this is where I'm going with this, is because I don't know what it is about Don't Die Rusty. And Ricky will, I hope he chimes in here after I get done with my little rant here. But we have had more people tell us stuff that they really haven't told before on any public place, because I think, I mean, we did the 7 peaks, and that was about being tough too. And we want to say we're tough. We talked about toughness, about being on the ranch, and you had to be
Yep.
tough at times just because that's who you were. But we've in this in Don't Die Rusty, we've also showed that we need to care, and there's that everybody talks about, you know, we can go to any bull rider.
Hmm.
I'm going to go there
Sure.
since we're in rodeo right
Sure.
now. We can go to any bull rider and I broke my hand. I've had broke ribs. I broke my neck. I broke my leg. I've had 10 concussions. I've done this and that. And yes, you're tough. But everybody can talk about the broken bones and torn muscles and whatever else. But nobody ever talks about the brain.
Right.
Nobody talks about how you are in here, in your noggin. And if we can get this out there, you know what I mean? I know, like what I said, I've had that sprained ankle, and I kept on calving, and it doesn't matter whatever
Right.
else. Everybody has these
Right.
things, but if we can get awareness out, like I've I've given more or less I've told about myself and been introspective. Ricky's been introspective. Now you're introspective with us here, and the more that we get this out for males, you can still be tough, and you can still kick ass in whatever you're trying to
Hmm.
do. But remember that we have this muscle up here that needs to be used a little bit too, and we need to take care of it. And I'm not just saying hyperbaric
Right.
chamber. I'm saying in the whole aspect of the
Right.
game. And by you coming on here and doing this with us, that even gets more awareness out there that we need to take care of this thing on the top of our
Right.
head.
Maybe this can help men that are listening. Um, I would it, men, real men, need to be dangerous. They need to have the capability to be dangerous, but have it harnessed, have it under control, and
Mm-hmm.
maintain. And if it's to protect yourself or your family or something like that, then so be it. But I think men, as by nature, God instills it into us to be leaders and to be male and protector and that. But I would, it's much better to be a, I'll grab an old saying, a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Mm-hmm.
So apply those two things with taking care of yourself. If you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be there for anybody else like you ought to be or can be or should be, right? Uh,
Yep.
who says it's not masculine to be wise? I think it is masculine to be wise. Uh, yeah, I agree with you. We do need to be talking about our minds, talk about our brains, take care of our brains. You know, for so long in my life, talk about getting introspective. So for so long in my life, I abused myself because it made me feel alive. That pain, boy, it made me feel alive. I think back now, it's kind of a little bit twisted, but it made me feel alive. And I think a lot of men are that way. A lot of guys, and not just only men, but I think men in general are yeah, they like to be the suck it up, rub some dirt on it. It's just a little bit of blood. You're leaking a little bit. It'll stop. And all that
Mm-hmm.
macho manly stuff, yeah. But I think really, if you want to get over the machismo, macho stuff that overly masculine stuff that we do, I think we can slow down and think about the wisdom of taking care of ourselves, taking care of our loved ones, and you know what? It's good, right, and healthy to care for self.
Yep.
Bottom line, it is good,
Mm-hmm.
right, and healthy to take care of ourselves, and I believe it's even scriptural. That's probably the best word to
Oh yeah.
describe it. To
Yeah.
care for self, not to abuse your body, abuse
Yep.
your temple, abuse yourself. Uh, I abused myself to because I had a to fulfill a need I had with inside of me, and I discovered what that was, and I realized I don't need to do that anymore because I do realize I already had it. I already had it. Frankly, my value comes from God, nowhere else. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it takes a lot bigger person to admit and realize that, not be arrogant and cocky about it, but be in a humble way of like, yeah, that's it's okay to love yourself. It's okay to be okay with yourself, and you don't have to, you know, flex your muscles or your brain power over somebody to be a man or masculine. Uh, I'm all about being masculine, and it makes me feel alive. I think like anybody, but I think we have to. It's healthy to have it in a proper, appropriate perspective.
Yeah, I talked a little bit about that in the recap episode when we were recapping your conversation that you had with you and Cody Custer, and I couldn't find the right words to really use, but I'm like, you guys are like hard men. You guys are manly men,
Oh, what?
but you also have the ability to speak about, you're articulate, you're smart, and you're able to speak about those types of things. And that's like Rick was saying, I think part of the reason why we have so many people on here really just kind of come out of their shell is because we're creating a safe space for other men, well, and women to talk about these kinds of things. And when other people hear that, they go, "Oh, man, if he's comfortable talking about it, then why can't I? Why shouldn't I? Or
Yeah,
maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's not something that sets in right away. But the more and more, you hear those things, and the more people you see and you talk to that are willing to be vulnerable and talk about those deep, dark things in their lives, I think it makes more people open to discuss it and understand, like you said, that it's not all about just burying your feelings and it's in the end it's never going to be a good thing for you or the people around you. So
Right.
I think that's the big thing, and I appreciate you coming on here and talking about this stuff, because it also creates that environment where anybody who's listening to this right now can say, man, you know what, I should maybe think about that, if they're struggling with some things,
Yeah.
mental wise or anything in that regard, maybe think about getting some help or talking to somebody, or.
Right. And here's something I heard. I had a speaker come to school here a little while back, or beginning of this month, Suicide Awareness Month in September. Uh, the lady said, actually, we all have mental health. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
you damn right we do. We all have mental
Yeah.
health. Sometimes we struggle and sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's a longer period. Everyone is different. Everyone's an individual. But Ricky, like you're talking about, what you're just saying, it made me think of some of the closest friends I have are guys that we've connected in a way that we've opened up to each other, and not in the sappy, weepy, make yourself
Hmm.
vulnerable, but in a
Hmm.
real way, been
Hmm.
vulnerable of like saying what our fears are, saying what problems that we have, saying what our
Yeah.
struggles are. Shoot, we can help each other by just
Mm-hmm.
sharing what our struggle is. Like, really, me too. Or like, yeah, that's uh, uh, to tag on what you were just saying. It gives permission when we share about ourselves or admit our shortcomings, our struggles, and we talk about it. It gives other people permission to talk about it, non-verbally.
Yep.
It gives people permission to talk about it. It's the same way as if a parent says to their kid, yeah, when I was your age, I did this and I did that. Well, that parent's not realizing they just gave their kid permission to do that. They really
Yeah.
did.
And
Mm-hmm.
So my point is,
yes.
if we talk about our struggles, our joys, uh, talk about. I think we're meant to connect with each other. Uh, and especially men are stronger when they can connect with other men, and
Mm-hmm.
I think we're a lot stronger and we're more confident in ourselves because we find out, well, you know what, I struggled with that and so does he, or we did, and we both overcome it. Now let's go help our buddy over here that's struggling. Or I don't know, that's I
Yeah.
at the sound of sake of sounding sappy or whatever, I think that's a beautiful thing in life that we're able to do that.
Yeah.
You know,
For sure.
Well, it is, and I have two because I wrote down three things while you were talking, but when I think like a podcast, like and what we're doing now here is, I think by talking about things in this manner, us three, other people know that they're not alone in thinking like
right,
this. But I also think that to start the conversation, and by some people might think that they're being sappy or weak, but how about somebody can go up and say, "Did you hear that Don't Die Rusty conversation with Jerry Norton? I liked it. You need to listen to it and think
sure,
about it." Then they can have a conversation about, "Well, what'd you think about that? And what'd you think?" You can start the conversation, and you don't have some guys don't have to feel like they're all that's happy. But did you hear that? That was a cool
right,
conversation. And the other thing is when Ricky was talking about uh, hard men and being macho men, but I'm going to say there's probably, I mean, not in a shoot, but here's the deal: you're between two ricks that probably, and you're the one that's grabbed the horns, not bull by the horns, not us, probably.
I don't know. Hey, it's three guys talking. We're kind of sharing our philosophies or our thoughts.
Well, I'm just saying you're the one with the bull. Grab the bull by the horns,
Yeah.
probably.
I may have I may have Oracle bull by the horns, but
What's that?
Gary's grab them.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Speaking of grabbing a bull by the horn, one of the coolest feelings that I miss about rodeoing is making a round with a fighting bull or a bull period with horns on and reaching back right behind your hip to almost between your hip and your butt cheek or right in that area, reaching back and placing your hand around the horn and feeling the hot blood going through that horn. You got to be in the sweet spot to do that. And you're on the edge of the danger of getting smoked and run over and annihilated and getting away with something you shouldn't. How macho is that?
There you go.
But I miss that. I miss that, and that just dawned on me one day. My I was thinking of some times when I was fighting bulls and what I did and how I did and like play by play. I was writing it out, actually writing a story, and I got thinking about, oh yeah, that horn. It just, our skin is a little cooler than blood. You just lay a hand on that horn. That horn is hot, and oh yeah, and it's rough or it's smooth. They're all different, but and you're making that move as you're doing that. It's you got to be there. You have to have done it to understand maybe, and for the same reasons. Done it for the same reasons and have
Yeah.
been there. Uh, like
Well,
like being able to. I've had the fortune of I flew a F-16 with the Thunderbirds one time.
Oh
Like
wow.
my hair was on fire. It was cool, man. It was just like what. It's hard to share it with people, the thrill. But we get around other bullfighters. I do, other bull riders, and we talk about that when this happened or when this situation happens, it's like it gets the blood going again, and you connect, and I think it's a very similar way to connect when you're talking about your vulnerabilities. It doesn't have the
yep.
thrill of the fear factor, but it has the thrill of connection. It really does.
I think it's kind of like surfing.
Could be. I've never surfed.
I mean, I haven't either, but you hear about the perfect wave or that
Oh,
feeling of the perfect
yeah.
wave, and I mean, you being in the zone right there, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a thrill. It's I think we all have thrills, things that thrill us,
Yeah,
and that's kind of I think it's kind of along the lines of don't die rusty, don't don't
yeah,
die twice.
no,
Stay alive
and
and actually die once when you go to heaven. But there's
yeah,
that saying of there's a
yep,
lot of people die when they're in their 30s or 40s, and then or men that die in their 30s or 40s, and then they actually die when they're older. They just quit living, is what they're saying.
yeah, yep, and in the it's interesting to me in the fact that you know every sport or every place has uh, that good. Every sport or everything like surfing has that perfect moment. I guess it's that place in life where you just want to stop time,
Oh,
just because it feels like you're in that zone, and you just want to stop that. Have
yeah.
that. You're going to remember that moment and how you
Oh, yeah.
felt like there was nothing like it for the rest of your
No.
life. That even though it could be 2
Oh,
seconds. It seems like an hour. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It seems like a
Yeah,
lifetime.
what comes to my mind is there's a spot when you're fighting a fighting bull, or where when you're making a round with the bull, you look at you go where you look. Like a bull rider, if he looks way off, that's where he's going to end up going when he gets thrown off. Uh, and same with there's guys that will fight tighter in a freestyle fighting bull. They'll be tighter with the bull than others. The difference is the guy is looking at the hip or the tail, and the other guys. And what I like to do, and I did both, but I mean, what I like to do is look at the shoulder, and I would drive with all my power and my
Hmm.
might to get to the shoulder. And you can get so far in that shoulder, you could stop and turn your back to him and wait for him to come around. And that split second, I've joked, and I've never smoked anything, but I've joked like, yeah, you got so much time, you could just stand there and light a cigarette. It's like time stands still, and it's called the sweet spot, and it is like
Yep.
you're almost as safe as in your mother's arms for a split second.
Yep.
And that's the time I'd like to freeze. I have in my mind, I guess.
Yep. Yep. That is amazing.
Yeah,
But I know it's going to be about 10 o'clock
that's all
there.
right.
So, but I this has just been enjoyable and educational, and you keep my mind going, and I'm going to tell you, if you will, you certainly will want you back again for such a good conversation. I mean, because we'll have more questions and stories to talk about.
That'd be fun.
You know, because it'd be fun to meet up sometime, like again, and then it would be fun to have Ricky there and not at a hip hop concert, so I
I
screw
know
things
he's
up,
on some little
and
hip hop.
you got to see the whole thing. and you get, and I'm getting better with not being so technologically unsound, we'll
You know,
say, but it was, uh, I for conversations and
uh-huh.
memories, I have to thank you and Cody, actually, because that night was one that I learned so much, not just about you guys, but about myself.
Cool. What brought that about?
And, well, the conversations at supper, and when after I left, and I'm thinking about
Yeah,
this stuff, and then our conversations, and find. I mean, how many people go find a open convention center room and just say we're going to do a podcast in here without even asking anybody?
Cowboys do, Rick. Cowboys.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying.
You'd be surprised the
How
stuff
many?
we've gotten away with. The
and how,
statute of
and how
limitations
many?
has gone past, so we're good.
But it was good, and then to tell Ricky about it, but have Ricky to laugh at us when he knows that he can't hear a dang gone word I'm saying at that concert, and I'm just panicking like I have these two
Yeah,
together. What am I gonna do? And and you saw my eyes,
you're
but
sweating.
it and then to have it go
Yeah,
right, and to have it be an awesome conversation, and in the end it's good. But for me, I kept on telling Ricky about this, and I kept on saying this, it was a great conversation, and to have that,
awesome.
and then to be here right now, and to I just want to be able to keep on maybe having this conversation every once in a while, just because I think people can learn.
Wow.
And I do. I think life experiences are more important sometimes than books.
Oh yeah, yeah. You can learn more, and it's more real. If it's from a person's mouth or a person's real experience, then something that could be made up or that you have to interpret, just off of letters on a page instead of the visual and the nonverbal and all that comes with that communication.
Because it's exciting for me when Ricky gets excited about a
Cool.
guest that he wants to have on. And then when Ricky comes on, and he doesn't know, like, I don't know if he knew what I was talking, I don't know if he knew where I was going when I was going to go talk to Cody, and then I had talked that I got you, and he hears the excitement in my voice. And then he listens to the conversation, he goes, that was good.
Cool.
And for me, you know what I mean? And when he has a conversation or he brings up a point in a conversation and we get done, like, and we talk about how the episode went, and he said, and I tell him, you know what? It's interesting to me because we get to keep on adding to each other. Ricky gets to tell me, like, that was cool, and I get to say, you know what, you did a heck of a job, and that was a cool guest too.
Feedback is awesome.
And when we agree with each other about these people, that's the good thing about this whole podcast. And for you to tell the world about what you're doing with a hyperbaric chamber by guiding our youth as a school
Mm-hmm.
counselor, and by getting this word out, there is no place I would rather be than to get this word out. And I want to thank you, but I want to, like I said, I want to be able to, I'll send you texts, of
Yeah.
course, and keep in contact, but I just want you to know that we want to have you back on the podcast again.
I would enjoy that. But I want to warn you, you have to be careful because your listenership will either go up or down.
And maybe, I don't know if your wife would do it, but I think it'd be interesting to have your wife on here too,
I think I've
because
had that thought tonight.
it here's the deal. Ricky and I happen to get husband and wives on here, and the conversations are quite
Oh, I bet
interesting.
they would be. She's a character.
And the other thing that we talk about, and Ricky, I'll let you talk because I talk a lot, but Ricky and I, and people have reached out to us and told us this, but we are very appreciative of our wives.
That's it.
And a lot of guys aren't appreciative of what they have. And I may make fun, and like Cindy might say I'm hard-headed, like we were talking, and stuff, but I have a wife that puts up with me in my worst and in my best, and she is a very supportive person. And Susan is very supportive of Ricky,
Cool.
Yep.
and I don't know Benita, but I only
I
know you.
I have outpunted my coverage. Uh, I I'm very fortunate. She supports me like none, like I couldn't imagine. I didn't realize that marriage could be this good. Uh, I'm very fortunate that it's my second time around, and it's been a real blessing. And we work at it. We work at our relationship, and I think that's important. I think you're kind of silly if you're not up to that. Uh,
Yeah.
so we both have a willing heart, and we both have a heart for God, and support each other, and really cherish the time we have together, and value our time together, and also the feedback that we can give each other. I'm excited. I thought just very recently is like, wow, I didn't know if I could ever tell my wife something like that or say it that bluntly or vice versa. And it's like, that's a pretty cool place to be. Uh,
Hmm.
it's, yeah, because you're connecting. We're connecting and understanding, and, where at one point in my life, I might have taken offense to that, or vice versa. But there's the knowing and the trust and the love that's there, and the acceptance of imperfections and shortcomings. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what makes a healthy marriage. And I feel incredibly fortunate. And I'm pretty sure she feels that way too. But you can ask her next time.
Well, we look forward to that kind of
Yeah, I think she
conversation.
would enjoy it. I've thought of that during the conversation tonight. Like, that might be kind of fun. I'd be a little nervous, but
I think we all
yeah,
would be.
I'll tell you what, I'll give you a list of questions that you can ask.
All right.
Well, Rick and I have been talking about we were gonna do a we have yet to try to do it, but we were gonna do like a dating game style episode with our wives,
Yeah?
and we were gonna have somebody else come up with the questions, and then we would have to do the
Ooh,
whole you know dating game. You know how that game works. Come
yeah. Yeah,
there, right?
that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Learn a few things about your significant other that maybe you didn't know
Yeah,
about, or maybe get
right,
yourself into a little bit of trouble too. But you go
right.
into it with the mindset of knowing that, hey, you can't get mad at me. Okay, this is for fun.
Yeah, yeah. This is for points. This is for points. We're trying to win a game.
And of
I
course, you
think
got
about that on
to
Family Feud sometimes.
yeah,
It's like, I think I'd go in there. It's like, okay, whatever answer I give, just know that I'm trying to win the game.
there you go. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
But
It's so nice because from what I feel, and I know Ricky and I, like I said, I haven't met Benita, but what you say, it's when you can have peace in your mind at home. That's the best part about this whole
yeah,
life, you
that
know.
sure makes life good,
And
better, easier.
and and I know that we all have that peace of mind. I know Ricky does, and I know I do, because like I said, I'm leaving tomorrow night to go hunting, and she knows that that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah,
And when she go she I'm still a little jealous, but she got to drive to Alaska, with her
uh,
son. I'm more jealous about, because I always wanted to drive to Alaska just to see the
right.
country. And but she's gone for a week, and this is those are the things that when you can enhance each other's
Yeah,
lives, it's the best
right
thing in the
on.
world.
absolutely. So you're no stranger to this question, Jerry. I know we've asked it before. Maybe some things have changed for you, but we ask everybody this question every time. So, what's the good life to Jerry Norton?
What's the good life? Uh, the good life is connecting, spending quality time with my wife and family, and also connecting with some genuine brothers in Christ.
Yeah.
I get some fulfillment from that, and it means a lot to me. If I don't have that, I can tell something's a little missing. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but family for sure, and friends, and I guess I like to do something and be something meaningful to life.
Yeah.
Whether it be not necessarily to myself, but I get fulfilled by caring, giving, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of deep guy, huh?
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's great. That's
So
excellent. I love that. That's great.
Thanks. Yeah, I just enjoy life, and I'm one of those deeper thinkers. Uh, Sometimes that can get me in trouble. Don't overthink or think too much,
I,
but uh, I don't
Yeah.
know. That's the way the good Lord made me.
Mm-hmm.
I hear you there. So, do you have anything else, Ricky?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks so much for your time. I mean, we're 2 hours deep, and I'm, so happy that I was able to be a part of the conversation, finally meet you, and I hope that sooner than later I'll be able to shake your hand, and who knows, maybe you can teach me a little bit about running away from some bulls or something, because that.
Well, your wife might not like me teaching you something about bulls, but yeah, look at that. Maybe I'm nervous just trying to spit that out.
Yeah.
No, I've really enjoyed meeting you. Rick's talked highly of you, and it sounds like you guys have a good partnership, friendship, and that's always
Yeah.
cool to see. And yeah, it's good to meet you. I'd love to shake your hand and spend a little time getting to know you, and it'd be fun to do this some more.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, we look forward to it.
Yeah, me too. I love the name "Don't Die Rusty." It says so much.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. But I just want to thank you so much about being on here, Jerry, and I just enjoy the conversations that we've had, and I feel lucky and to have them. So we will have many more conversations in the future. I can guarantee you that. And so with that, I just want to say, don't die Rusty Nation. Keep chasing your dreams, living your best life. And of course, don't die Rusty.
Don't die rusty.
Take it to them.
There you go.